Okay, so let's try this again. Seems like there was a little bit of problems. So we will see if we can get Stephen back on this call here. So just hold on, everybody, and we'll see if anyone's having problem with video. That'd be really great to just let me know. I think it was disappointing with everything that happened with Darren Bradley. I don't know what I'm not sure what happened in that circumstance, but Instagram Live has not been too friendly lately. So this might turn into a different kind of series if this kind of continues. So we're just waiting again on Steven, trying to have a connection that works well. I'm not sure which side this is coming from that's not working. Excellent. Looks like Steve, can you request to go live with me? Is there a little button? Uh-oh. Looks like our presenter has just declined. SD Housing Federation. Can we get you to come back on? For some odd reason, Steven, it doesn't look like you're the one that's being able to connect here. So we just need you. It seems like SD Housing Federation uh, is showing up. So I'm transferring that power over to that account right now. So right now we're just patiently waiting for Steven. He does a lot of beautiful urban work with low income housing, and he works for a nonprofit, SD Housing. So we are in a little bit of distress here. Um, Here we go. Here we go. Now we're cooking with butter.
There we go.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, Steve, how are you today?
I'm great, Ian. Good to see you. Good to see
Good
you.
to
Sorry, that
see
was a little
you.
bit tricky.
Yeah, no, it's all a little tricky, and I really appreciate you taking the time to figure it out and not just give up right away.
Oh,
Uh,
heavens, no, never.
that's not how you made it this
No, the
far.
confusion is my comms manager manages the Housing SD account, the Housing Federation account. This is neo-urbanist is me.
Well, at the end, we're gonna have to remind everybody where to find you and where to find your. Well, let's just start out with that. So, Steve, you know you do a lot of beautiful work and you run a beautiful business. If you could just start out with your practice right now and what it is and who you work and what kind of work you're doing right now, I think that'd be a great start.
Well, so 4 years ago, I left actual architectural practice and went back to the nonprofit sector, which had been one of my earlier careers. So I'm now running the San Diego Housing Federation, and we're a nonprofit who's dedicated to increasing the supply of housing for folks who are least able to afford housing on their own. So really folks who are in the lower third tier of income in the region. So it's a lot of seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, but it's also folks who have recently been homeless, and really a huge number of people who are working maybe multiple jobs but just not getting by because the housing is so expensive here. So we're a membership organization. We pull together to try to make it more possible for more housing to be built. And most of the housing that we're seeing built for affordable housing is being built, of course, on transit corridors, in central business districts. So it's really about urbanism, and it's a form of urbanism. Make sure that there's equality, equity in urbanism, so that people who work and make it possible for a city like ours to function. I mean, when you look at the whole hospitality sector is full of low-wage jobs, but we need folks in order to support these. Society needs folks who are, work in hotels, who fix your cars, who are your dental hygienists. All these people are people actually qualified because of their incomes for affordable housing. Our job as a federation is to make sure that it's as easy as possible to build it and to fight for the resources and the policies that make that possible.
That's amazing, and that's a fight that, like you said, is so needed to make a city work. And I think sometimes that's forgotten.
Absolutely.
It's the idea of high rises and beautiful restaurants, but at the same time, it's a very large demographic of people that need to live in a city to make a city beautiful as it is. So, it's taking a couple steps back.
Okay.
So, I would love for you to kind of let us have a little insight on who you are. How did you end up in this position, and how did you end up in architecture, and then how did you find your way back into what you're doing right now, and why?
Well, it's a long arc, and I'll give you maybe four-fifths of it
Okay.
because the whole story's probably too long. But a couple career paths ago, I was managing a business district at El Cajon Boulevard Business District. From the Boulevard sign all the way to 54th Street. And my job there was to inspire confidence in the district, to get public improvements made, the medians that you see with the jacaranda trees, the double acorn street lamps. So a lot of urban improvements. In the course of that, I learned a lot about planning because we put in place a community plan. We called for the rapid bus line that is now running up and down the boulevard to downtown. We drew a line on a map and we insisted on it year after year, and God bless, it took us almost 20 years, but we got it. We did the center line. We advocated for the center line, which was transit down the I-15 and the medians of the freeway. And if you see the arch over El Cajon Boulevard at I-15, and then there's two, of course signifying what they are, and then structures on the university over I-15. Those were transit gateways we put in place as a dare to the transit authority, Sandag at the time. It's like, you will not take our transit away. We're planting these flags of transit gateways. Now that we've got the gateways, get us the transit. So we fought for that. I learned so much that process and ended up working with city council, future city council member Tony Atkins, who was then a staffer. I worked on her staff then when she got elected. I worked on advocacy around transit. I worked on redevelopment, affordable housing. And as part of that, I actually worked on an affordable housing project at University in I-15. Metro Villas that was designed by John Linton at Studio E at the time.
Hmm.
Beautiful mixed-use project. But what was amazing to me is the transformation that took place when we took what was at the time 60 or 65 really run-down housing units, and we were able to tear those down. They were really awful. I mean, one of them had a trailer duct taped to the back of the house as a spare room. I mean, it was really seriously, challenged housing. We took down 65 units, put back 122, and increased the open space, created, shared parking, created a commercial space where there was, a school, a charter school that went in. And to me, the transformation was amazing. And this happened toward the end of toward 4 years at working for Tony at City Council. And I was getting heart palpitations working at City Hall. It is a tough environment there. And, the hostility that is constantly flung in that direction is really amazing. I have the utmost respect for government, public servants, because you take a lot of crap. I'm not up for that. I want to make change, and I saw that change could be through design. So when I was debating what to do after I was leaving Tony's office, architecture came to mind. I realized I had, since I was 15 or younger, 15 years old, wanted to be an architect. Here I was 40. How do I do that? So I went back to New School, 5-year degree, and in the midst of that started practicing at Platt White Law Architects. And at the same time I was doing that, I was volunteering as a board member on the City Heights Community Development Corporation, which builds affordable housing, which actually was one of the partners in Metro Villas there. And I started to learn the business of that and saw how challenging it was, but also how rich it was, that these places weren't just buildings. They enabled people, first of all, to have a stable place to live, but they were also, centers of organizing. They had community rooms where people could get together and have other needs met, where we literally organized some of the transit advocacy um, the community rooms of some of these buildings, and that was really powerful to me. And so as I was practicing architecture, I'll be honest, I'm not a details guy. I'm an idea
Hmm.
guy. I'm a client guy. I'm a let's solve your problem. I'm going to find problems you didn't even know you had kind of guy. I didn't do enough of that there. So what I really found was I was really thrilled at the time that I got to spend at the CDC and helping to promote transit and housing. And so this job opportunity came along, and to be an executive director, which meant I needed to have political background, some nonprofit background, hopefully some construction background, brought it all together, and I've found my place in this world doing that.
That, that's really interesting. So for most of your life, you focused on creating this type of architecture, creating these kinds of spaces. What was what brought you into that idea early on in your life? Was there something that you grew up that kind of sparked this interest, this advocacy for low income, for those people that need that extra help, that need that extra voice? Were you very political when you were younger, or was it just kind of a role that you fell into?
Well, I think it comes down to my character. I've come to discover that as a younger man, especially as a young gay man, as a young gay boy, that to
Hmm.
feel bullied by the world was something you live in constant fear of. And it's less true now, especially on the coast, but so very true that you grow up with a sense of these forces that were bullying you and others in the world. And I've turned that into in my life a sense that I have opportunities here. I'm a cisgender, white male, 6 foot tall or so. I've got advantages that other people don't have. I'm middle class. I need to use those advantages to try to help that other people not be bullied. And economic hardship is the worst, biggest bully of all because it is relentless. And homelessness is a bully that just doesn't stop poking you in the chest, right? So
Hmm.
my goal is in life, I want to make things better. And I keep going to root causes. And so, I thought if the city I could get to root causes, I realized we were not getting to the heart of things. Architecture, I could get closer. Actually changing the physical landscape of the city and creating spaces for people to live, for people to congregate, and neighborhoods that were vibrant was just like, that's the core. That's the core for me.
What a powerful message! I've been lucky enough to know you for a while now, and I've been able to follow your career. I've been able to join you in studio, going at both attending new school as well. And that message just is the heart of why we all look for something. When someone tells us to follow your heart and do something that feels real to your character, that's just so beautiful what you said and what you stand up for, and how you practice what you're looking to stand up for right now. And I'm really happy that the world has people like you
Oh,
that
thank you.
are
Thank you.
looking at life in so many different ways to try to find solutions and to use the problems that have been brought to you, and turn them around into these beautiful things that we call careers. When so many people turn around and decide just to make money, and of course that's an important part of everybody's life, but when you have a story like yours and you have so much meaning, you create such more than just a money maker, and you're changing lives in San Diego constantly. What kind of projects are you advocating for right now? Is there something that's going strong that you'd like to talk about?
Well, going strong and on hold too. I mean, nobody
Hmm.
predicted the times that we're in right. Well, actually, I should say yes. The previous administration predicted a pandemic, but we weren't really as prepared as we'd like to be. The thing we've been working on the most is, as we look at root causes, homelessness is the thing that has just emerged in the last number of years as one of the real challenges that we're facing right now. So what we've been focused on as the affordable housing sector is what's some things called permanent supportive housing, which is housing for folks who have been living on the streets for a year or more, people who are like really crushed by medical conditions, sometimes sometimes mental, sometimes drug addiction, but largely just economically crushed and pushed out onto the street, right? Part of the dynamics when we talk about the marketplace is that we've been building a lot of luxury housing. You look downtown, you see a lot of towers that are up there. You see the red and the yellow buildings there that are renting for $2, $3, $4,000 a month. We're not seeing stuff that's affordable to really the middle income in this city. Well, the middle income, when they don't have the housing they want, they don't do without housing. They rent or buy the housing that poorer people used to live in. So we're seeing that across. It's not unique to San Diego, but we're seeing it acutely here. So what we're seeing is poor families now, when they don't have housing choices, they double up, they triple up, they move out of the region, they go long distances and commute to jobs, or they become homeless. And that's what we've seen as a crisis here in San Diego, especially with veterans, with seniors, folks on fixed incomes. So our effort has been really in the last, for 3 years, I've been trying to get a bond measure onto the ballot, $900 million City of San Diego bond measure that would help us build 7,500 homes for people who are homeless or at high risk of being homeless. So we've gotten close to the ballot a year ago. We got squeezed off by political machinations. We were headed for the November ballot of this year. God bless, we were on the docket. March 11th, we had a hearing at the city council that was just like, go, go, go. And that was March 11th. Do you remember what that was like a decade ago on March 11th? It was a different world. So we're waiting to see whether or not we can still move this forward. We know the need is still there. We've got like 3,000 people living in the convention center. We've got to move them somewhere. Mm-hmm. There's some hotels people can live in, and people glibly talk about, this is one of the reasons places where it's really helpful to have an architectural background, is people talk about, hey, we can just take these hotels and we'll just make them into apartments. It's like, dude, do you even know what plumbing costs? Do you even know what it takes to make these things? They're different functions. We build them differently. And we've got a challenge. We've got more than 2,000 people living in the convention center. We're going to have to return that to convention business soon. We've got almost 2,000 hotel and motel rooms that are being rented for folks who would need to isolate for COVID or who are homeless and at risk of COVID. And we need an exit strategy. We need to find 3,000-4,000 homes in the next couple of years, and even sooner. I mean, the problem is what's going to happen when you put 3,000 people out of the convention center onto the streets? It is going to be, we're seeing, if you go on a walk right now, homelessness is beginning to recede. Well, it's not receded, it's put out of sight, out of mind. People are being cared for, they're being fed, they're being screened. We need to build housing so that they can live there. And it's going to be, this has to be a city for everybody. Mm-hmm. We can't just have it, like a Santa Barbara where the rich people can live in their houses and everybody else just gets pushed to the margins and work like hell just to get to their jobs, or suffer terrible conditions. People deserve, if they work a full-time job, they deserve the opportunity to live somewhere decent. So we're trying to build that. We're trying to get this bond measure forward. I have no idea. If you'd asked me a month ago, I would have told you exactly what the future looked like, and I would have been wrong. So, we're working on a bond measure. We're working in this post-COVID environment. We're working, all of my members who run affordable housing, they have resident services. We're working really hard to train them. How do you connect them to the food resources? How do you connect them to, the PPE, the personal protective equipment that they need? How do you deliver services when you can't sit in the same room with people? I mean, there's all these kind of challenges that we're really a convener. We're bringing experts together to do peer-to-peer learning. So it's a lot of, we're seizing the moment as far as like what is the immediate need, and we're trying to look over the horizon to how do we make sure that we can house these people in the future. So those are two big initiatives, I would say, that we're undertaking right now.
That's amazing. I know San Diego has never lacked in its homelessness. We're in a very unique situation here, not only with the fact that that homelessness is very prevalent. I mean, I look out my window right now, and there's still many homeless people wandering the streets. And though it is less than it was in the past, it is still very strong presently. With our weather, it's also a very welcoming place for homelessness. I think not only are we lucky as residents that have homes, but San Diego is very lucky in general in the terms of that we don't have large environmental systems that come through here that bring tornadoes or hurricanes.
Yeah.
And it becomes an ideal situation for someone that is homeless to come and live.
Well, most people don't. Most people become homeless here. I mean, once you're homeless, your ability to easily travel, if you don't have a car, if you don't have money for food, are you going to be able to even buy a bus ticket? The vast majority of people, over 75% of people who become homeless in San Diego, or who are homeless in San Diego now, became homeless here. And we're talking about, there were like 10,000 SROs, single room occupancy hotels downtown before we did redevelopment in the 70s and 80s. We're down to fewer than 2,500. right? So we've lost a net 7,500 really cheap housing units, and we have about 7,500 people living on the streets of San Diego. There is a correlation. It's not the same exact person who would have lived there. What it is really is that there's always going to be people at the bottom of the economic ladder. We are always going to be paying people to be porters and dishwashers and orderlies and low-wage jobs. Question is, do we have homes that they can afford? So people became homeless here, and disproportionately, it's people of color. When at every economic downturn, they are the ones living on the slimmest margins, and it doesn't take much of a. Typically, the event that makes someone homeless is a $500 event. Is a car repair, a medical repair, where it just tips them over the edge. They can't pay the rent. They start a cycle. And once you're on the street, your ability to get a job, if you're not able to present yourself well, if you're not able to get a good night's sleep, if you can't get to a place because you don't have transportation, I mean, it's heartbreaking. And so I want to put rest to the myth that people come here to be homeless. I think there is a component, especially if you look along OB. There have always been people who came to the coast, stopped at the coast, and the classic, we used to call them beach bums because that was politically correct once upon a time. But folks who came here for that, that's a small number of folks. Most people who became homeless were working their jobs, were living in a house, they had something happen, and again, a medical bill is sometimes enough to send someone in a spiral. And
Wow.
so it's a beautiful city, yes, and we can do better than we are doing, and we are committed. We want to be the voice bringing people together. I don't want to take any credit for doing all of this work. My job is to bring people together, to introduce people to one another, and to present, when we can, a vision for how we can be really. We don't want to be America's finest city. We want to be a great place that we're proud of, right? Finest is just okay. We need to be great. We want to be a great city, and we want everybody involved.
And you're doing a great job of bringing a voice to it right now. Is there, along with you fighting for this, is there? I'd love to hear about the team that you've created to help create a voice for these people. What is your team made up of, and how are roles being divided in between each individual to help push this forward?
Well, first of all, I have a team of leaders. I don't have, it's not a structure like that. My team, everyone is a leader in their sector. The primary leaders I have there, I have someone who handles policy. She monitors state policy, federal policy. Laura Nunn, who's our director of policy. We have a great events and membership director, so we put on a conference every year. We put on 24 educational seminars. We put on an awards ceremony, a fair housing conference. We put on all these events, so I have a director of events and membership, Sarah Mirabelli. Shout out to her, does a phenomenal job. I have a communications director I just hired in December. I'm so thrilled. We have someone who is on the ball, who's young, who's hip, who's smart, who has heart, and has incredible skills. I mean, she tells me things like she has to tell me what button to push on a computer sometimes. But hey, she's a great leader, and she is helping us get our message out to the broader world. I have folks also, Marsa Imani, she organizes, we have programs, the Residents United Network, where we organize residents of affordable housing to be advocates in their community. And in some cases, many have gone up to Sacramento to lobby day and actually talked to legislators about this is what affordable housing is, this is what it did for me. And then we have a program underway right now, Homeless Experienced Advocacy and Leadership, where we work with folks who have lived experience of homelessness, and again, same kind of civics training, and then support to help them become advocates for how we deal with homelessness in the city of San Diego. And one of our graduates from our program is now sitting on the regional task force for the homeless. And I give a big shout out to Joe Barrett, who is just like amazing leader. And she brings heart, soul, and a very different perspective. When we think about who is homeless in San Diego and what does homelessness constitute, people have crazy ideas. What we see are the people who have really been crushed, the ones who don't even try to hide it, who are just like, I need a handout. The ones lining our business districts are largely people who have just like reached the rope. Most people who are homeless, you would never know. They have jobs. They've managed to pull it together to get there. They live in their cars, they live with friends, they sleep on a couch, but you don't see them. If they're mothers, they have to hide the fact that they're homeless so they don't lose their children, so they don't lose custody, right? So when we talk about who is homeless, don't think of just the folks who are, sitting down, lining University Avenue or Newport Avenue or East Village. Those people are all there with a personal story. For everyone you see, there are hundreds who you don't see and who don't fit what your stereotypes are of what homelessness is or why people become homeless.
Wow, Steve, that that is a serious message that I think is is missed in a lot of people, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I can't believe how profound and how touching it is actually learning more about this scenario, especially living in the time that we are, and as we count our blessings, uh, that we often forget how simple it is to switch positions, and how heartless it can be to be in a position where you feel that you can't get the help that you need and there's no one out there to help you. And it can be very hard to understand that there's somebody out there to help you. And you and your team are just bringing a voice to so many people that don't really have time to have a voice. Again, like you said, they're out there working. They're out there trying to be an active member of society, and they don't have time to be out there and go to these meetings. And truly, you are the voice, or your team, you and
Our
your
team.
team are the voice of these people while they're at work. And that's an amazing task, and that's a difficult task, especially because we often have such negative viewpoints of what we're talking about today. So with everything with COVID-19 and and this pandemic that's kind of come to us recently, there's been a lot of changes in the way that we treat homelessness. I know we've opened up a lot of resources, as you had said earlier, and we're starting to open up a lot of resources for mental health and drug addiction, which is an amazing step that's finally taking place. Um, Moving forward, what do you see the changes of coming long-term changes coming from COVID-19 and what's happening here in San Diego and possibly other places?
Well, first of all, I would say what's really compelling is that, it took this crisis, this virus, to actually show us, and we're housing everybody right now. I mean, we're putting everybody in the convention center or these hotels. It took this crisis to actually make it clear we actually have had the resources all along to do this. It is possible. We can wrap our hands around it. We can wrap our head around it. So I think a magic thing that came out of this is that people realize, okay, this wasn't beyond us. We just weren't willing to do it. Okay, we can't plead ignorance anymore. We know we can do it. We need to do the full solution. So I think what's good that's coming out of it is the sense that yes, we can. Yes, we've got the resources to do it. More importantly, I'm seeing when I walk down the street at a respectable distance from everybody, but I'm seeing a kindness and a respect and a social cohesion that I have not seen before, never since. People behave more politely in their cars, on their bikes. There's a communication we have to develop, a physical communication. We can't see our faces, and so people are, gesturing to like, oh, you go, or, we're behaving in amazing ways that I think we didn't think was in our nature. And we're seeing, literally and figuratively, we're seeing more clearly now as we're getting out of our cars. We're breathing clear air, and we're actually walking down the street and seeing the faces of our neighbors and not just the windshields. I think there's positive changes that will come out of it. The will to actually solve these problems and awareness that we can is something I don't think we can take away from people. And a sense also that home, more than anything else, is the basis of health. What did they say? In the time of a crisis, what's the first thing they told us all to do? Please stay home. Well, you have to have a home to do that. And people understand that. And we have a sense of our good fortune having a place. I talk to you, and I can say that there's a lot of people who can't, or who are living 10 to a room, who can't observe social distancing in their own living environment. There's conditions now I think we're aware of that we were never aware of before. So I think those are all positive changes, and we're committed to helping people remember them, and to remember that we knew we could fix this. So let's not forget.
Wow, Steve, what an amazing interview today. Well, I'm unbelievably happy that I was able to get you on here and have this conversation, because this was a very eye-opening conversation that I think is is really helpful to share. And I really appreciate the time that you spent connecting and sharing the information that you've been able to accumulate throughout all your years of working in this sector of humanity, really. Um, just before we cut this off, just like to ask you if there's any closing words that you'd like to share, and then also where people could go if they're interested in helping and getting more involved with everything that you're doing at the San Diego Housing Coalition.
Well, two things I would say to anybody who is listening is, one is, if you want to know more about affordable housing, if you want to know more about how to help it or to contact us, housingsandiego.org. That's our website. There's a contact button on there for me. Housing San Diego, all one word, housingsandiego.org. Secondly, the crisis right now, if you have a spare dollar to give, the food bank, serving seniors, are two of the organizations. I could list a number of them, but food resources are critical. For the folks that we're housing who are lower income, who are losing their jobs, they're struggling to find food. And in a country like this that has a surplus, we have so much food here, no one should go hungry. Places like the food bank connect. For every dollar, they can make more than a meal out of a dollar. So please give your money, support them. They're supporting great work, and nobody thinks, well, nobody is happy, nobody is content on an empty stomach. So please, let's feed one another.
Beautiful. And I hope people get in touch with you, and I hope that we can continue to make a difference in San Diego. And I will always continue to support you and your message. I always have believed in the message that you have shared with me. And I hope people can see how you speak from the heart and how this is actually being translated into the work that you do. So we have just one quick question. Gavin has asked, can we create a special affordable architects live/work studio clause to petition for?
Well, so there are practitioners here in town who specialize in that, and Studio E is one, MW Steel is another, Rodriguez Architects, JW Joseph Wong Associates, Carrier Johnson are some of the ones that have done some really remarkable work. I have to tout Studio E in particular because I've worked with them more closely, but I would say, we need to teach it. The architecture is not that different. The biggest difference in affordable housing is there's some requirements from the state. So we have community rooms and other facilities that may not be a part of a commercial apartment building, especially not in a lower cost apartment building. They're not highly amenitized, like with pools and with some of the kegerators and things like that you might get in a high-end apartment. But they are intended to be social spaces. They are larger family units, oftentimes 3 and 4 bedrooms, because we have large families. There are thoughts given to how do you make sure that the space feels like a community as opposed to simply a rent farm, right? And so I think there's, the new school has been great in terms of inviting architects who do affordable housing. But I think there should be more of attention given, because honestly, we're going to be building more of it in the future. We're not building anywhere near enough. And coming out of this economic crisis, this viral crisis, I think there's going to be a renewed effort and desire to see that we're building more of this. And I think it's going to be a growth area. And so young architects should be paying attention to it, should be studying the good examples that are out there. And I won't publicly talk about any of the bad examples, because most of what I see out there is beautiful. It's good. There's North Park Seniors, that is LGBT supportive for seniors. There's family apartments in Talmadge, which is seniors who are recently homeless, with gorgeous Talmadge and Euclid and El Cajon Boulevard. I would point you to Atmosphere downtown, beach between 4th and 5th, or maybe it's Cedar between 4th and 5th. Great mixed family PSH, great high-rise version. They're great examples. And again, if you go on our website, housingsandiego.org, there are examples there, and I'd be happy to answer questions. Click on the button. There's a button there. You can just email directly to me. I'd be happy to answer your questions and guide you to some really great examples of great affordable housing architecture. Beautiful,
Steve. Thank you again so much. And your work is so important to San Diego and the world. And, I know that we all emulate something that's bigger than us. And I know there's people out there that are trying to follow your ways of living, and it's much needed. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's good to talk with you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds great. Have a great night.
Okay. You too.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Well, that was an absolute beautiful conversation. I think that most of the time we think of architecture, especially what you see in my Instagram channel of being beautiful pieces of artwork that stand within our city. But architecture is very meaningful, and hearing a little bit more about what we're doing for all the people of our city was a discussion well worth having. And I hope that sparked some interest from some other people that may never have thought about that or have more interest in it. I hope this became a resource for you to find someone to talk to. Steve is a very well respected person here in San Diego, and what the work that he's doing is very necessary. So I hope that we can move on today and like every day, think of something bigger. Think about how we can be a bigger part of our community and how we can understand our community in a bigger way. And I think Steve really did a great job of helping us understand a little bit today. So as always, and where we are right now, I just want to end it by saying, stay healthy, stay safe, listen to directions, and let's look out for one each other. Let's look out for each other. Have a great day. There'll be nothing tomorrow. Tomorrow's slot, unfortunately, I have to do some work. That's going to have me busy all day. I'm going to be photographing a house, and that's going to be a full day activity. It's an empty house; no one lives there, so we'll be safe with the COVID, and there'll be just me. So tomorrow we will not be having a presentation. We will be joined on Thursday by Scott Magic, and he's a great architect from the San Diego area, now working in Texas. So look forward to talking to everybody on Thursday, and then we'll also have another presenter on Friday that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So have a great night and stay healthy, and let's do our part.